Are you ready for this? 2.0. July 15, 2019 by Anna von Reitz. I could have called this the problem. As you have already seen, the concept of time is man-made, the concept of money is man-made, and even the names we give each other are man-made. Indeed, everything outside of the natural world is man-made. The man-made mental constructs, labels, grids, handy devices, names, political maps, regions, etc., are all part of the world, not the earth. And the worldly kingdom, by definition, is primarily made of lies called legal fictions, or you may think of them as lies we have agreed to use for specific purposes. We agree to the concept of time zones, for example, to accommodate the effect of distance relative to the daily changes from night to day conditions and our own sleep cycles, but time zones don't actually exist. We adopt a 40-hour work week as a standard, but no such standard actually exists in nature. It's merely what we have, as a group, decided use as a reasonable amount of time spent working every week before we start charging overtime rates. We developed the idea of a foot from some idealized average length of a man's foot, and that replaced the idea of a cubit, which was supposedly the length of a man's arm from wrist to elbow. I suppose they used a worm to develop the standard for an inch, too, and it's all incredibly arbitrary and lame, but there you are. Arbitrary and lame is the order of the day, the foundation upon which the man-made world rests. Next time you reach for a flathead screwdriver and come up with a Phillips screwdriver instead, remember me saying this: it's all arbitrary. And while you are thinking about how truly ridiculous this is and how much we have accomplished despite it all, give a thought and a tear for those progenitors who discovered that some mushrooms are good to eat. This is the kind of trial and error, slop and by gosh, that human progress depends on, because while we are creative, we're not the creator. It's all pretty funny once you realize that time doesn't exist and that we are just fooling ourselves and muddling about in the quagmire of our own perceptual reality. What we are really parceling out is not time, but our attention and energy applied to tasks that we may or may not find fulfilling, in order to obtain symbolic payment, money or credit, that we can spend, in turn to fulfill our other needs. Okay, so all of this, the entire system, is man-made and essentially all fraudulent, all flawed, all imbued with elements of the silly and/or insane, and all done by a wink and a nod, agreement to function in this fashion, according to these rules, and yes, it's all arbitrary, not mandated by our Creator and effectively separated from our natural estate as nameless eternal beings having no such obligations. It is, as I said from the first, like some kind of weird children's game gone wildly astray. The world is what we mistakenly call civilization. The rules of the bizarre game are called laws. And we are all stupid enough to believe in this as adults. Many men have taken note of all this, most famously, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and they have somewhat impacted our rational sense of what is actually happening in our self-created world that is to our detriment and to the detriment of other people, too. Unfortunately, this naturalist movement was cast in terms of political anarchy instead of reasoned analysis leading to constructive betterment and change, so instead of freeing ourselves from our own chains, we have allowed things to drift into the current morass. The problem is that God, the Creator, is responsible for His creations, and we all have a sacred contract with our Creator, a mission, and a relationship with our Creator, which has largely been hidden from us by middlemen seeking to benefit themselves and separate us from our destiny as children of the living God. This is where Kurt Kallenbach's research takes us, to the intersection of the equal-armed world cross, where a singular act of God intersects with the plane of the physical world to create one indivisible species-specific unique creation, each one of us, and wherein the die is cast, the moment of fertilization. That is where life as a separate organism enrobed in flesh begins, but it is not the genesis of our being, which according to Scripture pre-dates any such physical incarnation. Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 5, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. That is, we are truly born in the kingdom of heaven, and transported to the earthly realm, our first birth. We are made incarnate in the flesh, our second birth. And later, 9 months on average, we are separated from our mothers, which we mistakenly call being born, or our nativity, which is a whole different and separate matter. You can see from this that we are truly born in an invisible realm of energy and thought and expressed as physical beings at the moment of fertilization, formed in the womb, but what we call birth is just a physical milepost in which we become visible and more or less functional on Earth as separate unique beings. It's another handy man-made lie. Our birth is not our birth. It is not the beginning of the sequence of our being. Our actual birth in the kingdom of heaven is mysterious and without time. Nobody knows how old any of us actually are, save our Creator, who has known us before forming us in the womb. Our second birth on Earth is also mysterious and untrackable, as no man can know the exact moment of the fertilization of the egg that morphs into his physical body. The third birth into the air of the earthly realm along with its separation from our mother is the first observable, certifiable moment when we draw breath, but this is merely physical and mandated by the first two acts of God. And it occurs some months after the moment of fertilization. This may seem of no concern to anyone, as there is clearly an unbroken progression from being known to our Father before being formed in the womb, to being formed in the womb, to being physically separated from our mother, but to the commercial geniuses among us, what this means is that there is a break in the timeline, therefore a break in the sacred contract between God and man. Where did the missing time in the womb go? This is the kind of thinking you get from men who worry about how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. Or not. And where have we been between the moment of fertilization and when we are cast out of our watery amniotic environment onto the dry land? Talk about a sailor being returned from the internal sea. We now know that the fertilized egg gradually insinuates itself into the uterine wall, a process known as conception, in which the fertilized egg acts like a parasite and forms a temporary connection to the mother's bloodstream, soul in biblical terms, and becomes a chimera, not totally itself and not totally the mother, either, but a combination of both. The mother's mitochondria migrate and become part of the baby's cellular matrix, and other exchanges take place that do not fully resolve into the unique framework of the child until they are postpartum. This time enfolded in the womb is the missing time that the creators of this system use and promote as a break in the sacred contract between the Creator and mankind to insinuate the fictional realm of suppositions and material claims into the mix. Who does the lost baby belong to? The Creator? The mother? The father? The government? The church? They further exacerbate this spurious discussion when the baby is physically born, and both the baby and the afterbirth are expelled together with the umbilical cord and various other membranes related to the amniotic sac. It will come as a great and disgusting revelation to know that these waste materials are gathered up and kept in reserve, and that the result is a partial birth delivery. They don't deliver the entire package to the owner. The rest of the biological material apart from the baby, but containing the baby's DNA, is kept and categorized as a foundling and infant decedent. Literally. We are not considered whole by these monsters until we return and claim the rest of the gunk as ours, and we are not eligible to receive our whole inheritance until we do. This is, obviously, just an excuse to separate us from our birthright as divine creations and as whole children of God, and is used to deny us the benefit of the sacred contract between God and man, so that they can benefit from it, instead. As absolutely crazy as this is and as it sounds, too, that's what these renegade merchants have been spinning. Oh, we don't really know who or what he is, he just popped out of his mother's womb by magic. The stork brought him and dropped him down the chimney. Oh, wait, that was Santa Claus, instead. Some load got dumped down the chimney. Ha, 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 well, you know, it was Winter Solstice. Who knows what happens on Winter Solstice, eh? Everyone was drunk. We don't know this beggar from Adam. Or Eve. He's a homeless pauper. No relation to God. And he's only half here. He's a cripple. Where's his placenta? No placenta. He might not be a man after all. Maybe he just sprouted like a clump of broccoli. Woe be it to them who shall be left with our names as a curse.